Hello, hello, hello. We are live on Genealogy Quick Start. How are you today? My name is Shamele Jordon, and I am your host for Genealogy Quick Start. Genealogy Quick Start is available, as you know, on YouTube, Facebook, and Philly Cam. Thank you for subscribing on YouTube. Thank you for liking our page on Facebook. And thank you for watching us on Philly Cam. I am really happy to have you here today. If you have not subscribed yet, if you're not YouTube, Philly Cam, Facebook, please subscribe. Do so. This helps us to know that you enjoy the show and that you want to stay in tune with whatever is going on in genealogy. Subscribe if you feel that genealogy is important. Do you think that genealogy is important? And also make sure you share with your friends. You know, if they're your friends, you let them in on all the good things. And so please definitely subscribe. I see you guys coming in. Welcome. Please let us know where you are joining from. Type it in the chat. Please type it in the chat whether or not you are live or are you watching in replay. Sorry, I got to get to the chat. How is everyone? Let us know where you're coming from. I see you're out there, so let us know. And also, you guys are genealogists. Oh my God, Carolyn. Carolyn, when did you move, girl? That's my friend from like way back in the day. And she became a genealogist, not because of me, but I think I might have influenced her a little bit. C. Davis, how are you? From Detroit. Welcome from Detroit. So let me tell you guys about the show today. Oh my goodness. So I've known Maureen Taylor for a while. She's our special guest today. But let me tell you this. One night I had a dream. I wasn't Martin Luther King. I wasn't standing up in the Mount of Washington, but it was a crazy dream. And this dream came not long after another dream where I actually dreamed that I was on a slave ship. Looking around, I could see bodies. I could feel dampness. I could actually smell musk. And then that wasn't the crazy dream. Then I had the crazy dream. And this time I was dressed up in some period clothing and I was walking through a city. And, I'm a very spiritual person. So I said, I need to reach out and find out, talk to someone who knows period clothing. And I reached out to Maureen and I said, Maureen, told her a little bit. I ain't tell her all about the slave ship and stuff. I just saved that, for close company. I don't tell everybody that kind of stuff because it's kind of weird. But the photo detective did not let me down. She told me books and ways that I could figure out and like kind of dissect this dream. So today, I have a super cool guest. If you don't know her, her name is Maureen Taylor. And the work that she does unequivocally proves that she is indeed the photo detective. And today she's going to talk about photo captions, fact or fiction. So do you guys have any photo captions that are kind of interesting or weird? Let us know about those in the comments. We'll talk about that when we bring Maureen on. But first, I want you to say hello to my buddies, and they're going to talk to you about Are They Lying? This show kind of sounds like we're kind of downing on the ancestors here, but we're not. We're not at all. Let me bring my buddies in here. First up, we have columnist, editor, and author Jim Beidler, author of the Family Tree Historical Atlas of Germany. How are you, Jim?
I am well. Who's your buddy?
Who's your buddy? Okay. You're my buddy. And also we have Michael John Neill, author, blogger of Genealogy Tip of the Day. Michael, what's the tip for the day?
The tip for the day, I really can't remember, but as you can always forget, so write it down. That's your tip for the day. Cite your sources if you find them. I can't remember what they are because they kind of get plugged out in big chunks.
Take notes. Take notes.
Take notes. Yeah, do you know where your car keys are right now? That's the,
I do.
Write it down. Write it down.
Even though I don't use it that often anymore. So, guys, you guys came up with this one called "Are They Lying?" Are you saying that my ancestors are lying? What's going on? Why'd you even come up with this title?
Nobody on camera has ancestors who lie. This is those theoretical people that could have them. So we're speaking entirely hypothetically here. And we said lying, but that was a slight exaggeration, perhaps just because it makes a better blurb or a headline. It's more either exaggerating, misinformed, confused. That covers a lot of areas and a lot of people. But, we
speak for yourself, buddy.
But when we get into the analysis of information, how correct we think it is, how accurate we give it, like how much accuracy we give to it, we've got to really think, were they, if not outright lying, misinformed or guessing or things of that type. That's another thing we have to be aware of.
All right, so we cleaned it up, and we all have those records where there are conflicts, but so I'm gonna tell you this really quick story. When the census comes out, like my first census was the 1930 census. When that
you were in the 1930 census? Oh
no. When it became available, what was that? 2000 and something.
Two.
And then the 1940 census was made available. My cousin Floyd, who you guys met on virtual family reunions, every single one of his father's brothers and sisters in the household name, first names, was completely wrong. Completely wrong. Floyd was so upset that he got off the phone with me, off of Ancestry, and got in his car and went and asked Uncle Bud what the problem was. Like, he was that upset. And I think it might have turned out kids playing a prank. So let's go ahead and get started with our quick start on Are They Lying? Or, what's going on here? So step one, you guys said, determine the purpose of the record. So what does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, I'll go ahead and address that. When we were talking about are they lying or telling the truth, the purpose of the record, if it's what punishment, is there any potential punishment for giving incorrect or wrong information intentionally in particular? Let me slide over here. If it's a deposition in court, if it's an affidavit or some type of thing like that, there's potential repercussions if you're giving knowingly incorrect information. It's different if you're giving a wrong answer on a census, if you give the wrong names of the parents on a death certificate for somebody who's 80 years of age. Really, what's going to happen to you if you're wrong? Not a lot. If you lie in court, that's a whole different issue. If you lie on a pension application, you're potentially setting yourself up for a fraud charge or something of that type. So when we're thinking about how accurate it is, or could they be off or intentionally lying, think about what the purpose of the record was and what repercussions there would be if they were caught giving something that was not true.
And likewise, we have to balance that. It's almost a risk versus reward type of thing. Because you're talking about the risk, the repercussions, but then there's also the reward aspect. Because things like the pension, well, you could be getting a payoff out of it if you lie. So somewhere in that larger matrix, we have to talk about where make some sort of tentative judgment on where we think that particular person might be in that risk versus reward matrix.
Now we got matrices. Oh my gosh.
Oh okay. Yeah, we're good. As long as we don't invert them or transpose them, if you know what those terms mean.
Or fall into them.
We're good.
Or fall into them, yes. So that was step one. Step two is to determine how close to the event was the document created. So can you someone explain that, please?
Well, this is the a lot of documents are going to have a relevant date in them, but that relevant date, for instance, if it's a birth date of an individual, well, it matters a whole lot as far as how much we're going to give credence to that if that record is like an infant baptism that was created soon afterwards, as opposed to if it's a birth date on a tombstone, where until recently those were always carved after death, after the person in best position to know wasn't around anymore. And then there's all sorts of in betweens there where there may be a lag of some years that may affect the credibility of things or who is giving the information.
And of course, it's like, the document isn't as a whole, it's each piece of information within the document. You kind
Correct.
of like dissect it.
Right, because certain
Perfect.
details
So
are going to be are more contemporary than others, depending upon the document and what it's talking about and what information it gives.
So Jim, you have an example of, you guys have a couple of examples. This was for step 2, right? Talk to us about Jonathan Fisher.
Yeah, well, this is one of my. I'm not even sure how many great grandfather he is, but I mean, 1850 census. One of my first big days doing genealogy, I was at the State Library, Pennsylvania State Library in Harrisburg. This is back in the 80s, folks. I'm getting microfilm reader elbow going through the 1850 census, where Berks County on 3 microfilm rolls, well, just about all my people are. And I didn't know how to use the index. I don't even think there were the old AISI indexes. It was a little book. I was a greenhorn. So I was just scrolling through and coming across different ancestors. Well, I knew I had a Jonathan Fisher in my lineage, but he was supposedly born in the 1790s, and here at my first look, I thought that said that he was 36 years old, this particular Jonathan Fisher, and I just kept on reeling because I thought, well, that's too big a mismatch. There's no way. Now, over time, what I realized is really it wasn't an error in the age, which it could have been. It could have been given by a neighbor. But what it really was is that is 56, not 36.
Let's take a look at that.
Yeah, it's just the writing is a little bit obscure. And now from a standpoint of experience, it doesn't throw me at all. There's no mystery here. It's just a matter of me getting the skills to read the handwriting.
And I love that because, go ahead,
I
Michael.
was just going to say he's gotten better at fishing. There was a little hook on that 5 that he didn't see. And
now I was able to reel it in. Yeah.
No, what I liked about that example was that we keep looking back at our records because you never know because you could research in your own so many. We're so quick to have records, have that eureka moment. Example. This one is from Michael. What is this, Michael?
I'm waiting for it to come. This is I can see it now. It's an 1802 deposition. I think that was the year from Western Virginia, and this is something we would give a reasonable amount of credence to. This was made in a public forum. I think at the bottom it says it was at a tavern somewhere. They made all these early 19th century depositions in taverns, but it was made in a tavern. It was made in public. The individual here, Seaton, refers to somebody as Anne, doesn't say who she is, but he refers to Barksdale as being her son. Down at the bottom, he refers to John being her husband. And because this was made in an open forum, if those details have been incorrect, very likely someone would have said something. And this also goes back to the fact this is a court document. So we would give a fair amount of credence to that. Also, Seaton's and it doesn't say how he's related. That's the frustrating thing about these documents. Why don't you say how you're related to these people? But chances are he's a son or a nephew or something, a very close relationship there. And he would be familiar with these people. He would likely have good knowledge of those relationships. Because of that, and because of the open form in which it was given, and it was in court, we give quite a bit of credence to that document for those reasons.
So I made a mistake in that. So step 2 was how close to the event. And these documents are about who reported it, which is step 3. So I apologize for that. If you guys see step 2 and you see step 3, that is me. Actually, it's not me. It's that assistant that I have that I need to get a new assistant. I don't know what's up with her. I've been trying to work with her, but so slow to say.
You'll have to dream up a new one.
Good help is hard to find.
So here's another cool document. What is this one, Michael?
This is another one that was in open court, a little different from the first we talked about. This is an 1805-6 era guardianship. I think this is from Boston. It's giving the parent-child relationship of the 3 names that you see in circles: Edward, Daniel, David, and George. Minors and children of David Trask, and it gives a little more detail about him. But because, again, this is a legal document, it's giving a parent-child relationship in this guardianship, we would give quite a bit of credence to that in terms of its accuracy. The nice thing about this, we want to be careful. The one I was inconsistent when I circled the names, in part because of how they're written. One of these individuals has a middle name, the other 2 do not. Of course, that's a clue, kind of separate from our discussion here today. But there's no commas, no punctuation, so you kind of got to think about it that way. But we would give a lot of credence to this as being fairly reliable. Again, it's a court document.
It's a court document.
Exactly.
That's a good one. I love court documents. I had a friend, he calls himself the country genealogist. He said court documents are the most underutilized records in genealogy. So we already talked about how close they were, how close the event was to when the document was created. And so let's move on to step 4, which is, should we trust them? Of course we trust our ancestors sometimes, right? So who's this first possibly we don't trust them person? What's this all about, Jim?
It's me. That's who. Actually, this one, this is my my late father's death certificate. He died in 1996. Actually, it's Richard Beidler's death certificate.
I'm sorry, I knew I had the
okay.
name wrong. Sorry.
No, no. You're keeping me on my toes here. Claude is my grandfather. But yeah, it says that my dad's birthplace is Robizonia. And where he was born, in the rural area, it probably was Robizonia post office. But as far as a municipal division, it was not.
Well, who's the informant? Who's the bozo?
Well, it's really the undertaker. I'm going to blame the undertaker. They had it filled out for my mother to sign, and I knew I kind of raised with her, and she's kind of like, don't get in the way. Nobody's going to care about that. and of course, in a moment of grief, I'm not gonna dispute Mom on that. But the one that is my fault, and I think this is probably your
show this one.
Your next example.
You're owning your mess. Let me show
I'm
this.
owning this. I did a family surname history on the Dobb family, and we are descendants of the Dobbs. And this thing's published. And I have in here my dad's write-up that he's born in Lower Heidelberg Township. And my dad, these are kind of hot off the press. My dad's reading the book, and he kind of has a smile on his face. He said, "Well, you want me to report the first error to you?" And I'm like, "Oh, come on." And so he was actually born in North Heidelberg Township, not Lower Heidelberg Township. And this was just a matter of me getting my Heidelbergs mixed up. But if somebody has a copy because of course I only was able to annotate my personal copy. But if somebody sees that book in the future and they see that I'm the author of it and this is a write-up on my dad, they might think, oh, well, this, this is money in the bank. Of course
Gospel.
he knew where, yeah, gospel. He knew where his dad was born.
Not.
So, but yeah, so those are just some flip side of things that you really just have to keep an open mind, and even things that seem like simple facts, may be wrong.
And we have another one. Who did this one?
This is me. I'm showing all my dirty laundry here. This again is in this Dobb book, and one of my cousins. This would be a first cousin to my dad. He diligently, when I sent out requests for information before the book, he replied, and I knew he was in the service abroad, and that he had married while he was abroad. So it didn't strike me as anything particularly strange when he reports his wife's name is Mia Lena Nimi. Well, what I didn't know, and apparently this is a military acronym. NMI means no middle initial. So I created a whole new surname here, which I will gratefully correct if I ever do a second edition to the book. So,
I love it.
I know it is kind of proof. And again, am I lying? As Michael was kind of said in the beginning, this covers a multitude of different types and grades of errors.
Yes.
My grandmother, if you look at all the information on her from her marriage up through her death certificate, it gives one place of birth. And of course she was the informant on the marriage record and things early in her life. But of course, on the death certificate and the obituary, she's not the informant. And who gave that information? It was her children who heard it from her. And it turns out she wasn't born where she thought she was, but she was a township to the north. But
okay,
she believed she was born in that little town. That's what kind of close to where she grew up. That's what she thought. That's what she told everybody. And so that got put in all these documents from roughly the time of her marriage up to the time of her death. But when I went to find the birth certificate and the baptismal record for her, they were consistently giving a different location, which was where they were living in 1910, which was the year she was born. So, it goes to, when we're talking about lying, where did that informant get the information? Particularly if they're providing information they were not a firsthand witness to, they're getting it from somebody. And that person may have honestly been I think Grandma was just honestly misinformed about where she was born. And so she passed that information on.
And some people don't know where they come at from. All.
Exactly.
Some people don't know where they were born, or
I discovered it before my grandmother died, and it was kind of like Jim and the error on his death certificate. His mother. I just didn't. Grandma thought she was born in Tioga, not Pennsylvania. There are others. Grandma thought she was born there, so it was. You got to think about, is this worth a battle or not? And the answer to that was no.
No.
I'm like, when she's dead, I'll correct it. You know what I'm saying. And so in that case, I've made annotations on her that she thought she was born there. She wasn't. So that's going to impact what location is in those. All
right. You guys came up with a great quick start. Let's remind everyone, since I totally confused it for everyone. Are they lying? First, you want to determine the purpose of the record. Step 2, how close to the event was the document created? Step 3, who reported the information? And we've learned that even if they are learned, Phi Beta Kappa genealogists, they can make mistakes too. Step 4, and I learned this from the Dobb family history. Step 4, should we trust them? And like they said, You just got to look, you got to do the research. Someone should know where they're born, but they don't necessarily know that. So guys, that was great. Thank you so much.
One quick comment based on
Yes.
one of the
Yes.
comments. It jogged my memory about individuals that are divorced saying they're actually widowed instead of saying they're divorced. I've got one who was divorced, and she and her husband are living separately as widows or widower in the 1900 census. They're both alive, but they were not going to say they were divorced. In 1880, the census taker did indicate she was divorced, and he put the biggest D I have ever seen for that. I thought if he had red ink, it would have been the scarlet letter on that census. It was a nice big script D. S's for single and the M for married were small and demure, but he wanted the world to know she was a divorcee. But oftentimes they put W for widowed, even if they weren't.
Right. Yeah, I found that commonly too. If we have time for one quick more Dob war story, you gave me the perfect segue, because when I was doing the research for the book, somebody had contacted me. Oh, she was so excited, and I'm going to send you my children's names and blah, blah, blah. Well, until we got to the fact that she had had a first husband that she did not want to put in the family history. And as I remember, this was it wasn't like, it was 2 months and an annulment or something like that. I mean, she had children, it was, and I don't feel that I pushed back aggressively, but I did let her know, I'd really like to have your full story, not your edited version. Of course, I never heard from her again.
Especially,
Jim,
when they reproduce with them, you kind of have to not leave them.
So, Jim, Wayne asked a question that I wanted to ask you too about those numbers that are above everybody, like 1-7-2. What are the quickly?
Yeah, that's my own code. It's each generation, the number of the child in that generation. So one is the first eldest child of the immigrant, then 7 would be the 7th child of the first child of the immigrant, et cetera, et cetera.
And so Deborah Ruth said that her mother-in-law reported her mother as a widow. So marital status is up for question 2.
Yeah.
Flounder First said taverns are often used for court proceedings. That's interesting.
And sometimes the bar isn't closed when they do.
In some locations that was pretty common, because it was a meeting place. They knew where it was at.
And I heard they used to put the census up there back in the day. Angela Allen said that I reported my father's death to Social Security Administration 11 days before his death. So she knew when he died. Angela, shame on you, girl. You and Beidler are going to the genealogy jail today. You're going into the naughty place. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Was a great quick start.
Thanks, Shamele.
I'll see you guys at the end of the hour. So let us get ready for our special guest. You guys ready for her? I'm so excited for Maureen. I think the last time you guys, all my Jersey folks in Cherry Hill, you guys probably remember when Maureen came to Cherry Hill. She remembers us fondly, she told us. She remembers every second of it. She just said it was just the most fabulous event ever. And so what we're going to talk about today, let's bring Maureen on. Hello, how are you?
Good, Shamele. How are you? Hi, everyone.
Hi. Everyone's there like, okay, with Jim and Michael. I'm here for Maureen. They said that like at 3:02.
It was a cool show, Shamele.
So, Maureen, how have you been?
I've been pretty good.
You
How about yourself?
Podcast last time I've seen you.
Ooh, you froze, Shamele.
Huh? Maureen?
Oh, hey, I'm here. Are you here?
I am.
What was the question?
Am I moving yet?
Yeah, now you're moving.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, not only did you not move, you didn't talk. So
I said you have a podcast now. Tell us about your podcast.
I do. I have a podcast called The Photo Detective. I'm up at like episode 105, almost 100,000 downloads. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I interview people to talk about photography, like authors, industry leaders, to talk about new products in the market. I do solo episodes on clues and stuff like that. I have a good time with it. I have some really good ones coming up. February, the theme is tintypes. How about a guy who takes tintypes with an old camera and a modern photographer?
And where can people, how can people find out about your whole, because you have so much going on. You have ebooks, you have courses, you do
Sure.
consultations.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you just really need to go to like MaureenTaylor.com. Everything is there. There's the podcast, there's the store, there's the links for all the social media, although I'm pretty much known across the board as the photo detective.
And that you are. So let's get
that
going
early.
with this fantastic subject. Like you just came, I would have never thought of this. I didn't even know that this is a thing. You said this is a huge thing. Photo captions, fact or fiction.
I pulled some great examples for you guys.
Cool. So let's first do step one. When you have this photo, and is it fact or fiction? Of course, we want to believe everything that we see, but first you want to question who wrote the caption, right?
Yeah, that's really key. And I just want to say personally, one of the things I do when I go on photo buying trips, which obviously I haven't done for months and months, but when I go and buy photographs, one of the first things I do is flip them all over to see what's on the back. And you'll see what I mean in just a couple of minutes. These are gems of my collection.
Okay, so you flip those over. I've been doing that too, Maureen. And then step two is, did they know the people in the photo? Do you know how we could figure that out?
So who's labeling that picture? When are they labeling it? We're going to talk about all of this and all these different steps. But did they actually know the person in the picture? Or is this like a game of telephone where great grandma tells their daughter, tells the other descendant? And then somehow between that first person and the person writing it down, things have gotten a little confused. I always use the example of, which George is it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I know in my family, I always enjoyed as a child watching them trying to figure out who the babies are. Because if there's a family where there's a lot of kids, babies look alike. And so there was one great aunt, she could always like say, oh no, that's not Robbie, that's Ronnie. Or,
I have a whole podcast episode called Who's That Baby?
I love that. So let's go on to step three, is how did they write it? So this was interesting to me. Why is this a step? How did they write it?
So this is a clue as to whether it's true or fiction, or if they knew them. So if it's written in ballpoint pen, then you know that it's mid 20th century, because ballpoint pens are mid 20th century invention. If it's a certain kind of ink or a certain kind of script, handwriting can tell you a lot, not only who wrote it, if you have other examples, but each generation learns a different way of writing anything. Although most kids today, I guess, Shamele, are not learning handwriting. Just
oh my gosh, don't even tell me about that. It's going to be like
just criminal.
I think genealogists need to come up. We need to create a scripting school for we should.
What a great idea.
Who's going to be able to read this stuff?
Well, one night I was sitting on the couch and I had a census record in my hand, and my husband looked over and he goes, "Can you actually read that?" I'm like, "You can't read that?" To me, it was as clear as day. This is exactly what it said. And he's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness."
Okay, so it won't be just the children having a problem with it.
No.
So step 4 is the caption true? And you have some really cool examples.
Just
so let's go ahead.
On the back doesn't make it real. Are you ready for these? I don't know that you're all ready for these. This I found. I was out at an antique shop with a genealogist friend who lives not too far from us, and he flipped this over and he looked at it and he went like this, and he said, "If you don't buy this, I have to buy it." And so I was like, "Well, on that's the challenge. It's coming home with me." And it's such a good caption. It's so good.
I love the picture. Let's just first
So
marvel.
here it is. Here's the family, right? You can read, I can read the fashion clues. You've got the big sleeves. You got that tiny little hat, that straw hat that's popular at the end of the 19th century. So let's put an 1899 date on this picture.
Okay.
Just
I
because
love the
it seems
suit
to
and
make
this
a lot of
little
sense.
boy.
Yeah, they're cute. And it's a whole, look, there's all this, like, you've got the chef, you got dad for this little boy.
And this is the guy right here in question, right?
Yeah. Don't give it away.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just went in really close on him because
But this is a good example, because one time I used to work in a library, and one time somebody came in and they were actually looking at like the 1920 census. I think that's how long ago it was. And they were so excited that they had found their mother and the father in the census because they did not know their parents' names. They only knew them as mom and dad. They had never, ever asked their parents. These are two like 80-something-year-olds. And they were like crying in front of the microfilm machine. Now, we don't have moments like that right now, but they didn't know. They just didn't know. So anyway, that's the preface to this. Go ahead. Put it up there.
Oh, okay.
Put it up there. It's too good to be true. So you can see that there's several different handwriting examples.
And I think I did once. So first one was this top one.
No, the first one's the top one. Dad, Helmuth Voigt, was not a successful businessman. He would start a business, go broke, then leave it, never could save anything, right? That's one person's handwriting. Then, what did they do? Pass this around the room? Like, how did this happen? So then this other person writes, Prospect Park, Brooklyn, where dad held the restaurant and the cafe concession. That might be dad on the right, standing, looks like him, except for his mouth. Now, what does this tell you? It says where dad held the restaurant, and this might be him, but I don't really know what he looks like. I don't get that. So then go to the next one so then the first person then refutes all of this and says, no, I'm afraid that is _ not dad. It's a priceless thing. I have been trying to tease out the clues in this. We have the photographer's name. It is Prospect Park.
That is
Brooklyn.
really cool.
And we have Helmuth Voigt. But there are a lot of Voigts with an H as a middle name. And I think that.
Well, poor dad. They're like, poor dad. Like,
plus, they don't identify anyone in the picture. He has to say he was a good for nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always amazed at what will end up on the back of a photograph.
That is unbelievable.
It's hysterical.
So, is there any additional thing happen with that? Or you told us?
I'm still working on it.
Oh, okay.
Because there are Voigts in New York, but I think that Helmuth might be a middle name.
Okay.
And I don't know, he did have a lot of businesses, right?
Yeah.
So, he might not have been in business long enough at that concession stand to actually have made it into the city directories. So it's a challenge.
So here's our next one.
Is the caption true? It's a lovely family group. You got mom and dad in the back, and then the 3 kids in the front.
I love this picture.
Seems pretty clear.
Seems
there
pretty
they are.
clear.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear. And then on the back, there's this whole story. So we actually know that Ned and Flo are mom and dad, and then we have Sydney, who's 21, and Evelyn, who's 16, and Freddie, who's 8.
Yeah.
And then we have a note up in the corner. Ada, September 1970, a duplicate of one sent to Ned and Flo. Okay, well, wait a minute. I thought Ned and Flo were in the picture.
Yeah.
Why would Ned and Flo get a duplicate if they already had this? And then it has Mr. and Mrs. Hubert Boone, Aunt Sophie. So maybe it's Sophie Boone. And then the photographers is another one of those stamped imprints. But then there's extra information, right? So go ahead, go to the next one. Sydney married, has 3 children, lives in Ashburton with 2 girls and 1 boy, Leslie, which is a clue. And then at the bottom, it says Ada gave Zoe, who's Zoe? A duplicate, 9/16/1970.
Maureen, what the heck is all of this?
Exactly. And it's in ballpoint pen. So somebody knows the family. The Ashburton has been very interesting because there is an Ashburton, it says something Terrace, comma, Ashburton, but the handwriting is all over it. So there's an Ashburton in New Zealand. There's an Ashburton in near Baltimore. And there's an Ashburton in England. And I bought this in Providence, Rhode Island. So there's a lot of clues here to be followed up on. I haven't actually even really, I started on this one, but I just like, oh my goodness, where do you begin?
First I was following like, okay, I get Ned and Flo. I get those are their 3 children. And then there's like no connection
to everything else. Like, who is Mr. and Mrs. Hubert Boone, Aunt Sophie? How is Aunt Sophie related to Ned and Flo? These photo captions take a lot of, you almost have to make a diagram before you do the research to try to figure out who everyone is. And then who wrote it, right? If this is Aunt Sophie, then it's a niece or a nephew, right? Oh, it's Ada writing this. And then she refers to herself in the 3rd person, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But who is Ada to all these people? So we have a lot of names and a lot of clues, but only the Boone last name.
I love this. I love that. Like,
show the picture again. Somebody wants.
Yeah,
to
let's
see
look
it.
at the picture again.
There you go.
And is this a client or this was a flea market find?
No, these are flea market things.
I have a flea market find too. I wish I would have bought it. I just took pictures of the back to see if I could find anything in the census. And then I was going to buy it. But now I think I'm just going to follow you and just buy them.
I buy them. I mean, you know, look at this. I got this is Myrtle Plumidor. She sits on my desk.
Oh, let's see.
You know how many Myrtles there are? Myrtle Plumidors?
Oh, that is super cute.
There's a lot. There's a lot of Myrtle Plumidors.
I love that. So let's go on and check out your next one. Let's see. Oh, I love this picture.
So you can even see how much I paid for it. I bought this at the Brimfield Antique Mart for $24. And well, that's a little bit of money to pay for a photograph. I had to have it because there's a genealogy on the back.
Oh,
in period handwriting done around the time the picture was taken.
Oh my gosh.
And I did find her on Ancestry.com. Hattie Lavinia Henry was born in 1842 and she gets married in 1868. And somebody writes all this information down. So this is maybe about 1860. So she's like maybe 16, 17 years old in this picture.
Wow.
But then the best part is the rest of the information on the back. What a gift this is. So we have Hattie Lavinia Henry, daughter of John Henry and Margaret Foy. We have all the information you need to do the research. She was married in June 18th, 1868 in Clifton Place, Jersey City by, it even tells you who, Dr. Clement French, to Bowl, I can't read that. I had it, but I didn't write it down. It's an interesting
looks like
name.
Keller's.
Yeah, Keller. And then issue follows. So this is a genealogist. Yes, it is outstanding hiking. It's
This
also
is
a city in
beautiful.
Ohio. So Debbie Drago mentions that Ada is also a city in Ohio, but it was actually taken in Ashburton. So it's nice to know about the Ada, though. So they're their children.
Wow.
Hattie, Henry. Somebody wrote over the top, so it was wrong. Like, are they lying? And it gives you a date, March 21st, 1869. Louise Minford, June 4th, 1870. Clara Augusta, March 17th. Adelaide, known as Carrie, December 25th, a Christmas baby.
Nice.
Alice Lydia, August 23rd. Charlotte Christina, July 12th. And then a list of who married and who they married. So Hattie, the Hattie, daughter of Hattie, married this person. Number 3, Clara got married to this person. Number 5, Alice married this person. And number 6, married that person.
Oh, very cool.
What's really interesting from my perspective is who wrote these.
Yeah.
Like, who wrote this down? Because they knew specifically the date, the day, month, and year of the first 2 children, but not the final 4. I will tell you, though, I was poking around and I found Alice Lydia's descendants on Ancestry.com.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to write to them and I'm going to say, I have a picture.
That's what I want to do when I find them. I want to reconnect them. Oh my God.
Actually harder than you might think. I did a whole month of identified photographs in April and asked people to help me match them up. There are pages online. Kate Keller has an amazing skill at finding, I think it's called Forgotten Faces. And she's always sending stuff out in the mail. But when these photographs end up abandoned, they usually end up abandoned for a reason. Like, there's nobody left.
Right. Oh,
it took 10 years for somebody to find a photograph that I had labeled The Little Prince online. And I mailed it off to the family after 10 years. Somebody said, oh my God, that's hard. I was like, you can have them. That's the deal.
Wow. So Jenny Watton said that she has a family photo with stuff written on the back and in the margins around the actual picture. And she said half of the stuff isn't even true, not even sure where they got the information. Like,
yeah. The stuff on the back is so fascinating.
So CBWN, you want me to show the picture again? Which
picture?
We
did. It was the one of the family on the rock.
Oh, okay. Cool. Cool. Maria said hello to you.
Yeah. Hello, Maria. This was a great, like, we were trying to find a topic that would be compatible with the guys, and are they lying or not? And I was like, photo captions.
Yes. I love that. Does anyone out there, did any of you guys have any photo captions of stuff that, was totally way off the mark?
Share them, please.
Yes,
put them in
please
the chat.
Share them. I'm going to bring our buddies back. They might have some photos. Let's see. Let's bring Jim and Michael back. How are you guys doing? Do you guys have any crazy photo captions?
I don't know if I'd call it crazy, and I'm going to have to kind of be vague on the names for a reason, but I was going through a certain relative's pictures, and she had in an envelope when her brothers were all from rural Illinois, and this relative had married a woman from rural Texas, and I don't think she quite knew how we were, and on the envelope containing the photos, this relative's very understated. She said, our introduction to this person. And it just felt like there was a veiled message there that when he brought his wife home to meet the relatives, something hit the something, as they say. Just the way it was worded on that envelope, there was irony dripping off the page, as they
word choice and word usage is
it was just the way it was phrased. So I've kept it because there's a message there. Nothing as funny as the ones Maureen had, though.
So did anyone have any questions for Maureen or for Jim or for Michael? Please take advantage of Maureen. We're not used to having any time left, but we'll do our question of the day for you guys. And I haven't even thought of my answer yet. Is, because Maureen's here. Let's say we get that one magical photo of any ancestor. Who is that ancestor that you would like to have a photo of?
And are we going right now with it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
so I'm going to talk first, and I'm going to say that on the top of my list was finding a photograph of my great grandfather. So 3 times great, because he's been such a pain to research, like total pain to research all these years. And I thought I would never find a photograph of him. And then somebody on a local history page on Facebook posted this photograph of this group of guys before the first Battle of Bull Run. And it had last names underneath. And then some Civil War historian actually listed the first. I thought, that can't be. And listed the first names of everybody. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, I still can't stop talking about it. So now I have to find somebody else I would like a picture of. And
yes.
That would be some of the grandmothers.
Maureen, you have to come up with someone, because this is the space of where things happen. So you have to speak it out so it can actually happen. You have time. Michael or Jim.
I want a picture of Esther Knowles.
Esther Knoll. Okay. Esther Knoll. Michael, Jim.
I can go next. Jim looks like he's lost in
Jim's
thought.
like, oh, I don't care.
That may take a while. Kind of to follow up on Maureen's comment, I've been doing this for 30 some years, and about 2 years ago, a relative, I didn't know she had one. She had a picture of my third great grandparents taken in the 1870s, and I'd never seen it before, and it was just, I stopped talking about it now, but for quite a while it was just amazing. I never thought I'd see one, given when he died. So that was really great.
I love that. So we have an A and a B.
And Ansha, but I won't make you spell their names. I think the one I'd like to get a picture of is Barbara Seifert Beeger Fennen Haas.
Barbara, we want to see you.
My third great grandmother, who died in 1903, because I just think she was quite a character. I won't go into it, but she was quite a character.
All right, Jim, answer the 2 questions: the picture that made you go and the picture that you want to see.
Well, the picture that I want to see is of my great grandfather on my mother's side. My mother's mother was illegitimate, so I have researched the family. I have found who they are, and DNA backs it up. But obviously there's these families had nothing to do with each other, so I don't have any sort of family pictures there. And as far as gasping, now not a photo, but kind of an illustration of a Beidler from the mid 1800s in my area, who was the spitting image of my grandfather. It turns out they are second cousins once removed. And that kind of I know you don't want to go too far with family resemblances, but I mean this was the same square head that I have.
No, so my gasping one is, when I not broke off from my cousin Floyd, I started my own body of research. Like I was helping him and he was teaching me. And when the 1930 census came out, no, I was not in it. Don't start that again. I did the research. And so I had traced back to 1870 and I knew all these names, but I didn't know what anyone looked like. And I was just, pounding the internet, because back in the day, you remember when you could get to the end of the internet, like you could know all of the stuff for your county. Like you knew every single page on the internet. I knew that. And this one night I found something I didn't know, and it was pictures of my grandmother's grandfather and great grandfather. and they looked just like my uncles. It was scary, scary, scary. The picture that I want to see is Mr. Brunson, who is my grandfather's father, who none of us know if Brunson is a first name or a last name. He is a Philadelphian. And I would love to see a picture of him because my dream is to see him, to know who he is, and know my Philly side is right across the bridge, like somehow one day, right? So let me wrap up, Maureen. So for the quick start for photos, photo captions, fact or fiction. Step 1 is try to figure out who wrote the caption. Step 2 is, did they know them? Does the person who wrote the caption know the people in the picture? Step 3 is, how did they write it? How they wrote it, the instruments that they wrote it tell you possibly when they wrote it. And step 4 is the caption true? And Maureen came much. I asked Maureen to do our bookshelf today. And so Maureen, one book is yours, of course, The Family Photo Detective by Maureen Taylor. And if you have those old books from 2001, you need to update. That's what Maureen told me. And the other book was Dressed for the Photographer for Ordinary Americans Fashions, 1840 to 1900. And the last one is 20th Century Photographs by Gary W. Clark. So that was fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for coming on today. All of you who have joined us, thank you so much for being there here. Sorry I couldn't get to all the comments today. I see people said very informative. Thank you, guys. Keep the chat going. We will respond if you have any questions. Thanks so much for joining us. You have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you, Shamele.